Whenever you are given a set of variables and are asked to solve for some unknown variables, I encourage you to use the following four-step process. Step number 1. Determine the variables that have been given and determine the variables that are requested. The given and requested variables were noted in the background information above. Step number 2. Write down the formula into which the given variables can be input and from which the requested variables can be derived. The best formula for this problem was provided in the expanded operating cycle diagram provided above, and as will be filled out below. Step 3. Input all of the known variables into the formula and circle the requested variables so you know what you are solving for. Cost of goods sold, $40,000. Inventory turnover ratio, 2. Net credit sales, $200,000. Average accounts receivable, $125,000. With that information, we can then solve for certain unknown information using the math that appears within this diagram. The unknown information we've been asked to solve for is average inventory, days sales in inventory, AR turnover ratio, days sales in receivables, and finally, the operating cycle. Step 4. Solve for the unknown variables one at a time. I like to start from the bottom and work my way up using formulas that include 3 variables, one of which I don't know yet. For example, in this formula, we know that if you take $40,000 of cost of goods sold divided by average inventory, we'll arrive at 2. So mathematically, this would have to be $20,000. The way you can solve that is just take $40,000 divided by 2, and that'll give you the $20,000. So you can see how that math works. Next one, I can see that 365 days divided by 2 will give our days sales in inventory. That turns out to be 182.5 days. So in other words, a half a year to turn the inventory over into a sale. So this is 182.5 days. Next, let's work from here up. We already know the 2 pieces of this variable to solve for AR turnover. So if we take $200,000 of net credit sales divided by the average receivables balance of $125,000, we get an AR turnover ratio of 1.6. Now that we know the AR turnover ratio, we can take 365 days and chop it up into 1.6 pieces, which is how many days it takes to collect on the receivables, and we get 228 days, 0.13 rounded to the nearest 2 decimals. Now we know our days sales in inventory, we know our days sales in receivables. You add those two and you get an operating cycle that takes 410 days, 0.63. That is a very long operating cycle. We now have enough information to go back and answer the requirement 2 questions that our nephew posed to us.